Warning: the following presentation may be disturbing or triggering to some viewers. All information on this channel is provided by the local news and is public to all viewers for your own research. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is the unthinkable. A father allegedly killing his daughter.
The little girl, though, her body was found here in Brampton.
Just what could be wrong? Like what happened? The last thing we expected was children.
Wagwan, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of Talk the Things podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about our next true crime story, and this one is about a younger person that went by the name of Riya Rajkumar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She was 11 years old at the time of this case, and she was born on Valentine's Day, February 14, 2008. And her parents were just going to call in this case Paul and Aaliyah. Now, I believe they're from Brampton. I don't know if that's where she was born, but this is where this case happens, is in Brampton, and I think they were Guyanese, either Trini or Guyanese, but I've seen a couple sources saying that they were Guyanese. Once again, it doesn't have nothing to do with the case, it's just a little bit of background for the story. Now, with this case, I realized that there's a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, like doubles or same thing happening on like the same number. And it might kind of sound retarded right now, but as we get into the case, I promise you'll understand what I mean. Paul and Aaliyah, right? They were in a relationship. We don't know for how long before, Riya was born, but the relationship eventually ended. And when they broke up, I believe it was not too long before the date of this case of what we're talking about. But when they broke up, it looks like it wasn't a good breakup. It was a bad breakup. And it looks like Paul was holding on to some secret feelings that was really eating him up. We don't know too much, once again, about the actual details of their relationship, but it seemed like it wasn't too toxic because Ria used to do like a split custody type of situation. It wasn't through the courts. They came to agreement themselves, which would have showed that there wasn't too much animosity on Aaliyah's side. But Paul, once again, was holding down some feelings that was crazy. So I want to go into the crime now. This happened on Ria's birthday. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier in the case, remember how I was saying there's a lot of doubles. Ria and her mom share the same birthday, February 14. So both of them are born on Valentine's Day. But now we're talking about Valentine's Day of 2019, which would have been Ria's 11th birthday. And I'm not sure what age it is for the mom. But they winded up going to the mall and they winded up getting their nails done, and they were just doing their stuff throughout the day, just celebrating. They had dinner planned a little more in the evening. But remember, I told you guys that she had kind of like a setup where she would always share custody with the dad. And on Ria's birthday, they were supposed to go and drop her off at the gas station. Well, that's what they did. They dropped her off at the gas station about 3 o'clock, and he was supposed to bring her back around 6:30 p.m. So, they go, they do the exchange and all that, and she's expecting to see Ria look more, but Paul wound up messaging her some weird messages, kind of seeming like as if he wanted to off himself and that he wanted to harm Ria. And when 6:30 came and passed and Ria wasn't, she never came back to the meetup spot where they were supposed to meet each other, she got afraid, she got scared, and she wound up calling the police and explaining to the police the whole situation. We have this setup where he's supposed to bring her back to me at 6:30. She picked her up at 3 p.m. Now it's like 7 o'clock, and she still can't find her. They're not answering the phone. Today is her birthday, and we have plans and stuff. And I didn't like what he was messaging. So police ended up putting out the Amber Alert. But when they put the Amber Alert out, they put it out at around 11 p.m. Now you have to remember, Aaliyah went and reported this whole situation around 7 p.m. because 6:30 was the drop-off time. 6:30 passed, and she has no word of where her daughter is. So it must have took a little bit before she ended up going to the police. So around 7 o'clock, you can say, is when the report was made. And the Amber Alert never went out till 11. So much time has happened in between that. And a lot of people were saying that, what ended up happening could have probably been prevented if you guys put the Amber Alert out hours before, and people could have probably seen her, whatever the case was. But around an hour later, they ended up canceling the Amber Alert, which would have been around 12:30 a.m. because they went to Paul's house and found Ria in there dead. And they never released how she died, but all we can say is that for sure Paul, Ria's father, is the one is responsible for her death. Now, what ended up happening was that about a little bit after he went on the run, and they winded up getting a tip about an hour later from when they found the body. So this would have been around 1:30 a.m. Now they get a tip saying that he was in Aurelia, and that's somewhere out those ways. I don't really too know nothing. I never heard of that place before, but they wind up going to him, and when they went to him in Aurelia, they found Paul suffering from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now the man shot himself, and he wasn't dead yet. They wind up taking him to the hospital where they were charging him with first-degree murder. They were charging like the unconscious body. But once again, the next twist with this case is that on February 20th now, when Riya was being buried, is the day that Paul, her dad, died. So I'm gonna go over it back again from the beginning. Riya and the mom was born on Valentine's Day. That's not a coincidence, but that's like a double thing. And then Riya was buried on the 20th, and that's the day that he wound up dying in the hospital. So I don't know, man. I don't know. This is just a weird case. I want to play you guys a news clip right now, and I'm gonna come back with my thoughts.
It is the unthinkable. A father allegedly killing his daughter on what was her 11th birthday. That's the allegation this morning after an Amber Alert ends with the discovery of a body in a Brampton home. And that's where we find our Tammy Sutherland at the scene, and we are hoping to learn more about what happened here, Tammy.
Exactly, Melanie. And that is one of the most heartbreaking parts of this story. The fact that this 11-year-old was killed on what was her 11th birthday on Valentine's Day. Now, little Riya Rajkumar, she was out with a visit with her father, but she was supposed to be returned to her mother at a specific time yesterday. And when she wasn't, that's when concerns started. And it mounted again when her 41-year-old father, according to police, began to make some disturbing comments about possibly harming himself and his daughter. That triggered an Amber Alert that then led to the discovery of 41-year-old and his silver Honda Civic up in the Aurelia area. That's where he was arrested. The little girl, though, her body was found here in Brampton inside of a home that we believe was partially rented by her father. The neighbors here in the area in Queen and Kennedy in Brampton say that they are stunned that this Amber Alert they received on their phone ended right here in their backyard.
Just what could be wrong? Like what happened? Last thing we expected was children. It is. It's going to be terrible because all the neighbors are really nice and friendly and all kid loving, and it's tragic for something like this to happen.
All right, so you guys just seen that. Now, I will never understand why people do this to the kids. You know what I mean? It's like I seen somebody on Reddit saying, he was living a normal life. He never had these type of thoughts before. There must have been something that Aaliyah did to make him act like this. And I'm saying there is no excuse. You cannot excuse this. Nothing can make you do that to your own kid. I just find it weird. The past 2 or 3 cases I've done is with people offing their own children, and I just don't understand what makes a person come to do that. You know what I mean? Like, why do you think that is your last conclusion to do? And I want to put out there the message that he winded up messaging, and we don't have all of the messages, but one of the messages that we have is him saying that I'm going to make you suffer for the rest of your life. So if you say something like that, you clearly, like, why was that your last thing to think of? Oh, I'm going to harm my daughter like that. I don't think that I just don't know. I can't even put my mindset in that mindset to think, what they're thinking, because I really don't know. I don't understand. I don't know why people will ever do this. Now the little girl's dead, and the mom really is suffering for all her life. But because of what reason? Because of what she decided to leave you? It's most likely what it was. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that never get put out there. Once again, there's never no excuse for this. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this situation, and we will talk next time on Talk the Things podcast.
Yeah, I'm a pretty little Barbie.